Manager, please call the roll.
Certainly. Honorable Mayor Pandeleon.
Here.
Alderman Beidler.
Here.
Alderman Morris.
Here.
Alderman Newman.
Here.
Alderman Rummel.
Here.
Alderman Preschlack is absent. Alderman Goshgarian.
Here.
Alderman Moreno.
Here.
And Alderman Bushman is absent. Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Okay, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on the agenda is comments by mayor, and there is an appointment to the Plan Commission that needs to be approved. This is the appointment of James Moorhead as the liaison. He currently sits on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I would request a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is comments by the city manager.
Great, thank you, Mayor and members of council. Good evening. I have a few items tonight, but I'm pleased to report they're all, I think, fun items, and so I'm happy to have the chance to provide a report and to introduce a few people from the audience. First, we are pleased to have one of our recent high school graduates here tonight to be recognized for her recent achievements and being selected as the winner of Croya's annual Margot Martino Essay Contest. So at this time, I'd like to invite Croya manager Todd Nahigian to the podium to provide some brief information about the essay contest before introducing this year's winner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Alderman. This is a wonderful pleasure. I love this tradition of coming back to be able to present to you our winning essay for the Margot Martino Scholarship, and basically in honor of one of our original founders and directors from many years ago, still a Lake Forest resident, Margot Martino. She coined the phrase, "the spirit of Croya," and we always wanted to acknowledge that once the students made it through their middle school and high school years, however they ended up on the other side, their identity, the fun, the meaning, the things that they did that were of benefit to them, we always like to hear what Croya had to do with that and what the spirit of Croya really meant to them throughout those years. So before we go into Hope's essay, I just wanted to let you know that we're having a wonderful year at Croya. The summer's been awesome as well, and we're excited about this coming fall. Right now, we are looking for a replacement for our high school youth worker who had left in June, and we've narrowed it down to 3 finalists that we're going to be interviewing with the students on Monday night from 4 to 7. And the students, as traditionally has taken place since I was hired many years ago, the students have the final vote. And it's a really remarkable way to share with the students that this is a place that they own, that they have responsibility for, and they really appreciate being involved in that process, knowing that the staff are the ones that support them and provide them with help to make programs. So over this past year, we've had a ton of service projects. We've had a lot of partnerships with local communities, including the American Legion and the Artisan Guild and the Kiwanis Group. We definitely have been having a great year. One thing that we changed over the course of this past year that I think is of tremendous note is that we usually had posted on the walls 14 or 15 rules that we expected all the participants at Croya, whether it be the after-school drop-in hours or for the actual programs on the evenings and the weekends, to follow. And what we found was kids had a very easy task of arguing rules. And they made it difficult for us as a staff at times, albeit maybe not all of them, but a number of them, and wanted to always talk about why the rules weren't fair, why the rules hadn't been broken. And so our staff got together with a number of the executive students from the high school and decided to change the rules into values. And we now post on our wall 4 values: acceptance, respect, empathy, and accountability. And if you've ever seen a teenager try to argue with an adult about respect or empathy or accountability, it's really difficult for them. And it makes our job much easier. Plus, parents are appreciating the fact that that's what we're trying to uphold rather than telling them what they can and can't do. We're asking them how to be as a person. And that's been a wonderful change in the past year. We've still had our fall and spring retreats, which are highly attended. We typically have 80 to 90 high school students that come with us to about 45 minutes away near Fox Lake for the weekend. We have a wonderful time with that. We're still working with Activator Music Academy to teach hundreds of music lessons a month. And we have two partnerships, private-public partnerships with counseling agencies in Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, and Highland Park in order to make sure we have quick referrals for those students that need those more serious services. Now I'd like to move on and honor Hope. Hope Alex is here tonight to read her essay. As a senior this past year, she was the vice chairwoman of Croya and provided a tremendous amount of energy and excitement. She's one of the friendliest people that we've seen come through Croya in many years. She was also a retreat leader for her junior and her senior year, which is an outstanding way to give back to Croya and lead the new students into the fold. And then she was also our fundraising chair a couple years ago when we did a fundraising event for the local House of Peace, which is a shelter for women and their children. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Hope, have her come up and read her essay that we all thought was amazing, voted on by the youth as the #1 and received a $1,500 scholarship from the Croya Foundation. Come on up.
Hello, I'm a little nervous, so bear with me, please. I'm glad it's not that big of a crowd, so, but thank you, Mayor and the City Council for having me. I'm Hope Alex, if you don't know already. Nice to meet you all. It's been an honor to read my essay tonight, and I just recently graduated from Lake Forest High School, and I'm headed off to Michigan State in the fall, so I'm really excited for that. So let's just get into it. A good friend of mine once told me that sometimes things fall apart so other things can fall into place. Regardless of the obstacles I've faced, Croya was one of those things that fell into place for me. I'm a strong believer that things happen for a reason. I've met the most extraordinary people through Croya, and I couldn't be more thankful for them. My parents separated when I was 9 years old, and to me, it felt like everything was falling apart. I watched my family struggle to dodge the hardships of life while trying to remain positive. Dealing with changes in my family dynamic forced me to grow up faster than I intended, but I wouldn't change anything for the world because it has brought to me, I wouldn't change anything for the world because it has brought me to where I am today. I've moved several times in my life, and although I was continuously going through changes, Croya has been something that always remained a constant for me. My family dynamic has given me a lot of freedom, which in return presented me with challenges that I was not prepared to handle on my own. I had to learn to make the right decisions and figure out what was best for my future on my own. Croya introduced me to the concept of unconditional positive regard, which to me is something I have learned to live by. It emphasizes the importance of accepting and supporting a person regardless of their actions. At first, this was a word that seemed rather confusing to me, but it was something that I had to understand before undergoing peer training with Joanne and Megan. Croya is a community partnership that effectively addresses and meets the social and emotional needs of youth in our community. But to me, Croya is so much more than that. Croya is happiness, a safe haven, an outlet. To me, Croya is a place where I've grown and prospered, and it has given me a new perspective that has affected how I handle the unnerving decisions that life has thrown my way. Having the opportunity to go on the Croya Fall Retreat was one of the most pivotal experiences I ever had. I was lucky enough to have been placed in a group with familiar faces, and some I even looked up to. All of a sudden, when it was time for the autobiographies, which was a tradition where every person in our small group talked about themselves, I felt like I wanted to hide. My mind was racing with thoughts and feelings that I was afraid to share in the off chance people would think less of me. Eventually, that feeling of anxiety was brushed away when my leader started talking about her life journey. Tears gently slid down her cheek, and instantly my mind was paralyzed. There I was, sitting against the wall, thinking this girl who seemingly has a perfect life went through all of this. Then other kids in my group spoke bravely about their experiences, and suddenly I didn't feel like I was the only one going through a hard part of my life, especially at such a young age. I felt the support that I had never experienced before, and at that moment, I realized how lucky I was to be here. From that moment on, Korea wasn't just an organization in our community, it was my community. After sharing about my life and what I have gone through, it seemed to diminish the weight on my shoulders, which helped me overcome my fear of being judged. Soon enough, I was an open book. I shared some of my more difficult experiences, such as my parents' sudden separation and divorce. I learned that all I can do is be the best version of myself. The little things I let hover over me suddenly vanished, like letting jealousy cloud my judgment. I had to learn to accept reality, focus on what I can control, and handle situations in the best way I knew how. Before this realization, I was afraid to open up because I was convinced that I was the only one going through something like this. Korea has helped unleash everyone's inner confidence and guide them to realize their potential that they never would have otherwise. The Korea retreat made me want to become a leader. I wanted to show others that they are not alone. I've been honored to hold a leadership position with Korea on the executive board and the retreats throughout my high school career. It is this kind of leadership that has helped me take the more positive paths, no matter the situation. Korea is a life-changing program that has changed the way I cope with challenges in my life and has encouraged me to guide others in a positive way. Korea is not just a place I called home, but it is and forever will be a huge part of my life. It's given me hope that no matter how much harder life will get, I know I'll be able to get through it. After attending 5 retreats, my last retreat was something quite memorable. Going from idolizing the upperclassmen to becoming one was a pretty incredible feeling. To see the underclassmen step up and fill in the shoes of the leaders before them assures me that Korea is left in good hands. Korea has taught me to be a little less serious, enjoy life to the fullest. One of my favorite quotes that reminds me of my time at Korea is from Perks of Being a Wallflower. So I guess we are who we are for a lot of reasons. And maybe we'll never know most of them, but even if we don't have the power to choose where we come from, we can still choose where we go from there. We can still do things. We can try to feel okay about them. I couldn't tell you exactly what made me walk through the Korea doors, but I can assure you that it is the reason I kept coming back. I'm sure Megan Gator can agree it's not easy leaving, but there's a new chapter waiting in our lives that is ready to be written. And I couldn't have gotten to the place where I am in my life without one thing, Korea. Thank you.
George?
Oh, sure.
We have a few students here tonight that are going to bring T-shirts up to all the aldermen, and I do believe that the city manager gets one tonight as well.
Right.
Should we do the whole, why don't we do the whole,
Sure.
the whole thing?
Yeah.
Everybody gets to stand up and take a stretch.
Don't be giving me a hard time, George. Over here.
Right there in front. There you go. You getting there? That's good.
Thank you very much for having us.
Okay. Large. You have large.
What's the matter with pink?
So I'll take a large. I'll take a pink.
That rejected pink. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'll take a large. Yellow. Unless you're gonna run short. Do you need me to take a pink? Are you sure? Okay.
Large pink,
He'll
please.
take a small.
The wife always
Yeah,
benefits from this. Thank you.
that's right. Let's see, a yellow one, please, and
Pink?
probably extra large,
Just-
if you've got
just
one.
grade.
That a man is not afraid to wear pink?
Oh, blue. Oh, no, gray.
Diane always gets these.
Certainly not. I think they have middle school
Thank you.
programs.
Extra large, and you said blue or gray? Yes. I'll do blue. Thank you, ladies.
Large, and you choose the color.
Fun.
Thank you.
Okay. Not charging anything.
Oh, well, it's all in the interest of ginning
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
I had a couple of real estate people say, why don't you think Bluff's so more active? It has a more sense of community.
Well, let me just take the chance to congratulate Hope again. I think all of your friends and family, I'm sure, are very proud of the remarkable level of maturity that you show. And certainly your words are also, I think, a testament to the tremendous asset and amenity that Croya is for the youth in our community. So congratulations to Todd and the staff as well. And with that, everyone who's here to support Hope, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. But if those of you want to go and celebrate, I'm happy to take a minute if anyone wants to exit. Yeah.
They don't think we're very interesting, apparently.
There.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
Judd, do you want some water?
No, I'm
We should
good.
have got your French Coke.
Well, I'm sorry to steal the audience for those of you remaining to give your presentations. But we still have plenty of people, I'm sure, watching from home. Moving on, we have a host of event requests that we are excited to bring before the City Council tonight, I think, which reflect the fun activity that continues to occur throughout the community. First, I'd like to welcome Ann Grant to the podium. Ann is Vice President of the Deer Path Art League and is here to highlight the upcoming Art Fair in the Square event. In addition, I'd add that Assistant to the City Manager Mike Strong is prepared to answer any specific questions to the approvals related to this event that are before you this evening. Ann?
Thank you. Thank you for placing us on the agenda for tonight's meeting. I'm sorry I don't have any T-shirts for you, but we do have some. We'll bring them the next time. The Deer Path Art League is a 65-year-old nonprofit organization that is located in the heart of Lake Forest. The mission of the Deer Path Art League is to spark, nurture, and enhance creativity, as well as raise awareness and appreciation of the arts in the community. In addition to the art fair on the square, The League hosts a variety of art classes in 2 large classrooms at Gorton Community Center. A children's art camp is offered during the summer months. Every March, the League organizes a gallery show of artwork created in local schools for students in grades K through 12. In May, a $1,000 fine arts scholarship is presented to a graduating Lake Forest High School student at Honors Night. These contributions to art in the community help us to carry out our mission. Pam Payton, who is the co-chair for this year's art fair and has been for 8 years, is going to continue the presentation by updating you on this year's art fair.
Thank you, Anne. Hello. The League's premier event, the Art Fair in the Square, is located in Lake Forest Historic Market Square, and it is always on Labor Day weekend. The 2-day juried fine art fair features 160 artists. This year marks the 65th annual event, which is Sunday, September 1st and Monday, September 2nd, 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. both days. This time-honored tradition is free and open to the public. We expect between 15 to 20,000 attendees, and the Deer Path Art League is sending out 40,000 event postcards mailed to residents of 11 surrounding communities prior to the event. The fair is one of the Chicagoland's premier juried art fairs. It is one of the few of its kind because it is not run by a large promoter, but rather organized by a local nonprofit relying on over 100 community member volunteers. In honor of the 65th anniversary this year, we have opened up the center grass area of Market Square to create a central community gathering space featuring food vendors and seating on the public perimeter pavers. It is our hope that the public will enjoy the beautiful surroundings and stay at the fair longer. This evening, we are requesting a 2-day special event liquor license to sell beer and wine from 11:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. both days. Events like the Art Fair in the Square offer a tremendous opportunity to showcase Lake Forest and the art community. As a local nonprofit, funds raised at this event are invested back into the community through classes, programs, and scholarships for Lake Forest youth. In order to help us continue these traditions, we are asking for City Council to authorize a waiver of fees for this event. We look forward to this opportunity to enhance attendee enjoyment of the event, and thank you for this consideration.
Are there any questions or comments from the City Council? In that case, I would invite any public comment. There being none, I would ask for a motion to approve a special event permit and liquor license as requested by the Deer Path Art League to support the Art Fair in the Square to be held September 1st and 2nd. And then authorize a waiver of fees in an amount not to exceed $3,800 for all applicable permit inspection and city service fees to support the event.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Beidler.
Aye.
Alderman Morris.
Aye.
Alderman Newman.
Aye.
Alderman Rummel.
Aye.
Alderman Goshgarian.
Aye.
Alderman Moreno.
Aye.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Another jewel of Lake Forest.
We'll see you in a few weeks. Yeah, thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome Joanna Rolick, Executive Director of the Lake Forest Lake Bluff Chamber of Commerce, to the podium to highlight several exciting chamber-sponsored events in the community. And again, in addition, Kathy Zerniak is prepared to answer any questions specific to the approvals related to these events that are before you this evening.
Excellent. Took me a moment to get up here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and address you. I'm Joanna Rolick with the Chamber of Commerce. And just following up on these wonderful presentations, these are the assets of the community that we're here to be able to promote. These are some of just the beautiful parts of our life here, our lifestyle that the Chamber wants to promote. And so what I'm here to talk to you about today is, first of all, to put it in context, but very importantly, to tell you about two special events that we're planning for Lake Forest that we're looking to have some assistance with. First of all, this slide, I'll just summarize this quickly, but we've got an approach that we're using right now with the Chamber. Of course, we still have business members. We have almost 400 members of the Chamber. We're educating them. We're offering networking opportunities. So we have what we do for our members as half of what we do. But the other half of what we do that's really become very important is promoting the town and promoting the assets that we have, both from the standpoint of keeping people in town when they're looking for entertainment, looking to shop, but also offering some resources for realtors who are seeking to promote the community and to really be able to promote the assets as they're talking to people interested in moving into town. So our goals are to create promotional opportunities for businesses, to showcase the community assets and vitality, to serve as this resource for the real estate community and for others, to attract visitors to town. But we're doing that through two primary ways. One is storytelling, by doing some both earned media and also some ads and some other opportunities to celebrate Lake Forest's assets and lifestyle, also promoting a Think Local First initiative. But the promotional opportunities are what I'm looking to talk with you about today. We have a brand new website, social media that is followed by probably well over 6,500 people now, our various channels. And also we're celebrating with a community event every month, at least one event every month until the end of the year. I also wanted to point out the Eat, Shop, Play logo that you see up there is one of our new social media initiatives. That is up every Friday, and it spells out all of the things going on in both towns so that people can see them in sequence and be able to link to them. But community events, so here we are. The first one that we're looking at will be actually the chaser, let's call it the chaser, to the wonderful Deer Path Art League Fair. This will be on Friday, September 6th in the North Courtyard of Market Square. This is the second year that we're doing it. Last year was very successful, so we're doing it again. I'll tell you a little about it. If you haven't had the opportunity yet, the North Courtyard of Market Square, which we're looking at there, is the back side, so that you're looking at the tower that is on the north side of the green, if you will, and this is what's behind it. These beautiful courtyards that are adjacent to also the parking lot at the bank, Lake Forest Bank and Trust. This is an aerial view to show you what we are using. The yellow arrow that you see in the lower right is where people come in immediately behind Forest Bouderie, and those red things are the tents, so that we've got the long tent that's down the alley that backs up to the businesses on the north side of the square. The larger tent to the left up above is the bank parking lot, Lake Forest Bank and Trust, and the one to the right is the courtyard that is Market Square's courtyard. So just an overview. We're running this with the assistance and partnership of Lake Forest Bank and Trust and Market Square. It's a showcase of local food and wine businesses offering food samples and 2-ounce tastings to those that show us a valid ID and are of age. We are capping attendance at 300 guests. They're required to show the proof of age. They get a wristband and a souvenir glass. This is something that worked out very well last year. We're looking at doing it again this year. And so this is one event that was very successful. So this is our event, the Central Business District on the east side of town. Now we have something new to bring to you. And that is what we're calling the Lake Forest Then and Now Auto Show. This is going to be an event that is a little bit different than the auto show that we traditionally have in Market Square and that we had in the past week. This is something that's going to focus on brand new cars as well as vintage cars. And we've got a committee that's been put together that is auto enthusiasts who represent all different kinds of cars, which is really terrific. And we have absolutely the most perfect venue for it in West Lake Forest, in the Settler Square and West Lake Forest Waukegan Road Business District. Let me show you. I have caught the train there, and I'm sure many people in this room have. But yesterday we had a meeting there, and I had to take these pictures because they are just beautiful. The setting there is extraordinary when you think of planning something in that parking lot. That is that fountain that's across Telegraph Road, I'd never even noticed, but this patio out in front and the beautiful gardens in the lower right, it's such a perfect location. And this is something that we're going to be promoting outside of the community. So it's also a very convenient location for people to be able to come in. We also have public restrooms, of course, and ample parking. So this is the setting. This overview is of the parking lot. That's what I've circled there. It has 470 cars. It accommodates 470 cars, which for our purposes is absolutely perfect. We are expecting at this point 150 cars to be displayed, and it still gives us excellent parking for those that are going to be visiting. We have wonderful partners in the Lake Forest Recreation Department staff. They are coming and they are helping us by putting together some activities for families. That's going to be centered at the train station building, right by it. I don't think we'll need to be inside, but that's where we have the restrooms, the activities, and there are going to be food vendors there. Sunset Foods, we're going to have the Left Bank truck there and some other food, which is going to be good fun. The auto exhibit will be what you see there on the right side, so closer to Everett Road. And then on the north end, which is off of Conway, is where we'll have the public parking. What we're going to have there, and as I mentioned, is exhibits of both new and collector cars. And I'm learning so much about cars. I never knew this. But classic, exotic, British racing cars, Rolls-Royce and Bentley, pre-war, post-war, and more. The family activities we talked about, we're also going to have live music, food and beverages, non-alcoholic beverages for us on this one. And the Lake Forest Fire Department is bringing along a display of a vintage and modern fire engines so that the kids will have a chance to see that. And I was talking to our police chief tonight, and we were talking about the possibility of having a vintage and a new police car as well. So that should be great fun. The partners on this, we're very grateful to have the City of Lake Forest partnering with us, the Lake Forest Recreation Department staff, of course, the Lake Forest Fire Department, hopefully the Lake Forest Police Department as well. We have auto dealerships and local businesses. This is a showcase, and it is something that is intended to bring people to that location, so we're thrilled from that standpoint. I've been promising that to Alderman Moreno and Alderman Bushman for a very long time. So what we are doing is asking for a few things from you. Uncorked, we are looking for the granting of a liquor license again this year, as you granted us last year, a waiver of the inspection and permitting fees, barricades for partial street closure, and that would only be Bank Lane, just to the west of the courtyard, trash and recycling service, and then for the auto show, approval for the use of the city property, because we are on your lot, barricades that we can use to be able to direct traffic in and out at the parking lot, trash and recycling, and it was suggested that we look to you for some monetary contribution towards this, as it's a very big event and we're running really the whole thing aside from the children's activities, and we'd be very grateful for that. So, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but we're very pleased and proud to be able to present this to you.
Questions or comments from the City Council?
Question of staff. Because we have several of these in front of us, I think it's for Kathy, and they're requesting waivers of fees. So every one of them that are before us tonight are requesting a waiver of fees. So do we have a policy about this? And when do we waive fees, when don't we waive fees? I'm just looking for some sort of policy that we can abide by.
We do have a process, and if I get in trouble, I'll asked for help from our finance director, we do have a process for waiving fees. We are obviously coming before you. For each of these events, we will actually be required to fill out appropriate paperwork, documenting the waiver, documenting the council's approval, and documenting the purpose. So there is a process in place, and the council is part of that process. Anything you want to add? Does that answer your question?
Well, do we
Alderman
generally
Rummel?
waive it for community organizations? Do we not waive it when private entities come before us? What's that policy? Because, you know, here, this is our Chamber of Commerce requesting it, which is, to me, a little bit different than the next one that we have coming up, which is St. Mary's. And so I'm just, you know, I mean, those are very different entities to me, and I'm just trying to understand when we think it's appropriate to waive fees and when we don't.
The council has historically regularly waived fees for community events put on by not-for-profit groups. So certainly the Art Fair in the Square, the events by the chambers fall into that category. On occasion, the council has waived fees for other community institutions. I don't know that we have a specific policy that says whether or not the council should or could waive fees for other types of events, but certainly the council has in the past waived fees upon request, and really weighing that based on level of community activity or level of engagement that it provides for the community. So the answer is no, you don't have a specific policy that I'm aware of for waiving fees for events, but you certainly have a record of what you've done in the past.
So I mean, is there an example of where we have not waived fees in the past? Maybe the exception is more the rule here, you know, no? Okay, that answers that question.
And
But by
looking
definition, they're
further,
not always
I believe
requested.
there have been some
Not all
events.
requests.
I think we've had some requests from outside, from agencies or organizations outside the community. One that comes to mind many years ago was, I believe, a run that was sponsored by someone from out of state, perhaps, and I believe that waiver was not approved in that case. But I agree with Director Holub that in most cases, when you have received a request from a not-for-profit organization, community-based, I believe you have pretty regularly waived a reasonable amount of the fees, if not all of them, depending on the level of support requested from the city.
And I would only add, it's my understanding that that it is subject to the review of the city manager. In most instances, it doesn't come before the city council. Tonight, because there were other requests associated with some of these events, it was included, and this was also viewed as just an opportunity to help promote some of the events, to bring it before the council. But it's quite likely that in the past, many of these requests never came before the city council.
So that's why okay, got it. So that's why we really aren't that familiar with waiving these or not waiving these. Okay, thank you.
I remember quite well the one you're talking about. We had a good, I raised sort of similar issues. This was, I think, before you were on council, Melanie. And the question was, in that case, it was, do we have a certain number? This was an event that was going to close roads. It was an outside organization. It had no affiliations, but it had, I think it was a bike and a run. They were actually expanding it to a run or something, and it was going to close a fair amount of roads into, I mean, not a fair amount, but you know, I don't know, a couple of miles worth of roads or something for 6 hours or whatever it was. And it wasn't a local group. It had no local affiliation. And we talked pretty long and hard about that. And, you know, we figured we just can't say, even, it wasn't that it wasn't a good cause, it just wasn't a good local cause. And our sense was that we needed to be sensible about some of this stuff that in fact really was going to impact the lives of people on a weekend. Now, this is quite different. I mean, we'll have this conversation probably a little bit with the St. Mary's thing, but it felt then like having to be able to say no to organizations that didn't have a local affiliation was relevant. And and I think the fees are, we certainly want to support our local not-for-profit organizations if we can.
Yeah, I'd say these fees are modest.
Yeah,
but-
me
but,
too.
Like beyond modest, and don't represent much of a revenue source. And also, one of the things that the city's been rather loudly criticized for over the last several years is not having any fun. And I think we need to support this and, to.
Well, please understand, I wasn't objecting to these events. I'm simply trying to clarify whether we have a
Process.
policy on this,
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the policy has been that it's within the city manager's authority, so.
And just as a point of clarification, the fees are rarely revenue generators. They're really cost.
Covers.
Right,
are
they're
partial
cost recovery.
cost
Sure,
recovery.
sure, correct.
So just so that we're aware, but, yeah, it's exciting. We've done some of these events previously, and certainly the Uncorked event was extremely great fun.
It was super fun last year. We look forward to even, and apparently Mayor Pandelion's tenure is going to be marked by fun. Are we going to be?
That's the
be getting
plan.
Excellent. So we've heard it here. The theme for the next 4 years is fun, and we want, let the good times roll. And certainly Uncorked, look forward to the car show as well, but Uncorked was terrific last year, and it is a limited, I believe you said a limited ticket?
It is, it
And-
is.
And
only
how soon
300.
will we be able to purchase those tickets?
You can do it now.
Go to the
We'll
website.
send you all the link.
Go to the website.
And I might add that with the car show, every time I mention it, I ran into Alderman Rummel's husband the other day at the car wash, and I said, "You've got to
Talking
come to the
about it.
car show." He said, "Come, I've got a car." And at any rate, so we may have a mayor's row there too, but we're very excited for it, very excited for it, so thank you.
Great idea.
It needs a little break work right now, as I understand, but.
You can just roll it off the trailer. Any public comment on this item?
What's the date? October 13th, the car show? October 13th.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to support the two upcoming community events, the Lake Forest Uncorked and the Lake Forest Then and Now Auto Show, in the form of waiver of fees.
So moved.
Limited city staff report, use of the Telegraph Road train station site, and a contribution to the chamber to help cover a portion of the time and resources necessary to support the events. Is there a motion?
I moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Peidler?
Aye.
Alderman Morris?
Aye.
Alderman Newman?
Aye.
Alderman Rummel?
Aye.
Alderman Gashgarian?
Aye.
Alderman Moreno?
Aye.
6 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Thank you. And now I'll let Jason have the floor.
Yeah.
Some more.
Thank you again, Joanna, both for bringing these two great community events into town, but also for your enthusiasm as always. It's much appreciated. And finally, I'm pleased to introduce John Hansier from the School of St. Mary Parents Association to highlight their request to host a 5K fundraising event on September 21st. Mike, to the podium, and I'll add again that Mike Strong is prepared to answer any questions specific to the approvals related to this event that are before you.
Yes, thank you. My name is John Hanser, and my wife Rose and I are presidents of the Parents Association of School of St. Mary in Lake Forest. The school has a rich history in Lake Forest, 102 years, and as members of the Parents Association, our goal is to enhance the community within the school and also raise funds. When we started working on this 5K event, which will be held on September 21st, we thought there was a great way to incorporate both of these goals. This 5K event is a great way to bring the whole community involved with the school, and a good way to raise some money as well. And we would like to ask for the race route to be approved. The route, you may have it, will be starting at Illinois Road and go down towards, go down to Washington, go to Frost Place, and go and use the bike path in order to minimize the closure of roads. The race should be relatively short. It's a 5K run, 1 mile walk. Proposed starting time will be 8 a.m. and again September 21st on Saturday morning. And we would say we'd probably finish by 9 o'clock at the latest. Probably need to close the roads by 7, open by 9:30 or 10. But we think it's a great way to get the community involved. It's a great way to start off a Saturday morning and just people learn about fixture in the community, fixture in the city of Lake Forest. I'd like to introduce the development director, Mary Catherine, and she'll talk about our waiver of fee request as well.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Mary Catherine Nelson, the Director of Development and Marketing for School and Parish of St. Mary's. And the Parent Association of the School of St. Mary's is excited to offer its first inaugural, we don't have 65 years of this, our inaugural 5K fun run and 1 mile walk on Saturday, September 21st. And as a thriving part of Lake Forest community, this event is open to the public from all of the surrounding areas. And we feel this is a really good way to build community spirit and to reinforce relationships with more people in the area. And the school right now is located on 2 different campuses in Lake Forest. Our primary grade, so that's preschool through 3rd grade, is located on 900 West Everett Road, so we do know that metro station well. And our upper grade campus, grades 4 through 8, is 2 blocks from here, so it was a horrible, horrible commute for me to walk over. But it's on 185 East Illinois in Lake Forest. We are a non-for-profit organization, and we depend greatly on our annual fund. So this event for us will allow participants from Lake Forest and all around to see what a beautiful place Lake Forest community is. I recently just moved to Mundelein for the job, and so I'm just getting to know like all of the fun eateries and apparently an uncorked event. It has the advantage that it will encourage people to then come back here for shopping, dining, and lots of other things, because Lake Forest does have a lot to offer for its visitors. And the School of St. Mary greatly depends upon its annual fund, which is the fundraising arm of the school, in order to cover overhead, faculty salaries, facility improvements, as well as instructional tools to assist our students in their educational process. So the events such as this benefit us and the community together. Are there any questions?
I would also invite any comments by the public on this event proposal. Okay, thank you very much. I would,
Mayor, I do have a question, actually.
I'm sorry?
I was just
Showed
like,
me a little harder.
I was just looking at the city schedule, and maybe Sally Swarthout can address this, or we also have an event going on in downtown Lake Forest later on that day, the Fall Festival. Is there any concern in terms of overtaxing city staff and setup and any of the public safety issues that may arise from that?
Good evening. I actually looked into this when I saw the write-up come through, and I don't think that we're going to have any conflict with this run. It is so early in the morning, and our event for the Friends of Lake Forest Parks and Recreation Foundation doesn't begin until the mid-afternoon, so we should be fine.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Busy day.
Can I just?
Sure.
Can I just ask, sorry, these questions coming to mind, not as in a timely way. Are children going to be invited to participate in this? And this is a family run, so
friendly, yes.
hopefully you'll be promoting this with some of the other area schools and so on, because I think it's great when there are things that kids can do as a fundraiser. So do you want to talk about? And maybe this wasn't the right act. I don't have that.
No, it's going to be open to everybody.
Associated with it, or I mean, you have somebody sponsoring you, or how is?
There are fees for each participant. We're capping it at 300 participants. 3 years old and under are for free.
Okay.
Kids, we have an early bird registration for $15 for kids, as well as I think the 1 mile walk, and then $25 for those that are doing the 5 mile run. And then after the beginning of September, then it'll go up to 30 and 20.
Good. Sounds great.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? We already asked for public comment, but based on what you just heard, is there now a question from the public? Okay. Then I would ask for a motion to approve a special event permit and temporary traffic control plan as requested by the School of St. Mary Parents Association to support their Crusader Fun Run and Walk to be held September 21st, 2019, and authorization to waive fees in an amount not to exceed $1,750 for all applicable permit, inspection, and city service fees to support the event.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh, roll call vote again.
Yeah, Alderman Beidler?
Aye.
Alderman Morris?
Aye.
Alderman Newman?
Aye.
Alderman Rummel?
Aye.
Alderman Goshgarian?
Aye.
Alderman Moreno?
Aye.
6 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Okay.
Great, thank you. And my concluding item, he's already beat me to the podium, but I've asked Public Works Director Mike Thomas to provide an informational update to the City Council and to the community regarding a planned railroad crossing closure at Western and Deer Path, scheduled for later this week, although I'm pleased to say after Lake Forest Day. So, Mike?
Great, thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. As this map shows, the crossing at Western and Deer Path will be closed. Union Pacific contacted us actually in early January and asked for the best 10 days of the year that we would disturb the city the least amount. Staff felt right after Lake Forest Day, a lot of people leave town. School's not back in session yet, so they are planning all of this. They're going to start bringing in their equipment. Mike Strong has worked with all the businesses for all the busing to reroute the busing. So the busing will essentially go down McKinley to Westminster to Oakwood, same way with its on the way back. They are expecting this to take anywhere from 7 to 10 days. Usually on these types of projects, they finish up sooner, but they said potentially up through Sunday, I believe the 18th. So if you have any questions, happy to.
Yeah, their sign on the crosswalk says 7 days. So
7 days, and they told us 7 to 10, but they usually do finish up sooner. We apologize now because they have already begun to bring the signage in. They're very black and white on how they do things, and they have to follow all these different rules. So you're going to see a lot of signage for detour routes. That's just the way they work. So.
Questions?
Great. Well, if there are no further questions, thank you, Mike, and that concludes my report for the evening.
Thank you. And one thing that was briefly touched on during all those festivities we were just talking about was the granddaddy of them all, which is starting tomorrow night and into all day Wednesday is Lake Forest Day. So please go to the carnival, go to the parade, go to the beer garden, go to back to the carnival, and have a great time. And, anyway, right, and back to the beer garden. And, so, but it's always great fun. The weather looks like it's going to be great, and so hope everybody has a wonderful time. The next item on the agenda is opportunities for the citizens to address the City Council on non-agenda items. Any member of the public that would like to speak on an item that is not on our agenda tonight? Okay, there being none. The next item on the agenda is our items for omnibus vote consideration. You're going to have to bear with me. This is a pretty lengthy bit of reading I have to do. There are 14 items. First is approval of the July 15th, 2019 City Council meeting minutes. Second is approval of the check register for the period of June 22nd to July 26th, 2019. Third is consideration of a resolution of appreciation for city employee Mike Glomsky, who is retiring after 23-plus years of service in both the forest section and in the community development department. Fourth is approval of a user agreement and associated documents for eConnect Direct through Multibank Securities, Inc., and approval of signers for eConnect Direct account, for the eConnect Direct account. This has been recommended by the Finance Committee and discussed in prior meetings. Number 5 is consideration of an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 93 titled Cemeteries of the City Code, waiving of first reading and final approval. Sixth is waiver of procedures and approval of all city expenditures and new asphalt contractor recommendation for the Waukegan Road Sidewalk Replacement Project to Peter Baker and Sons in the amount of $429,308, pending Illinois Department of Transportation permit approval. And I'll point out there that that's privately funded. That is not being funded by the city. Number 7 is approval of design services agreements for the Deer Path Streetscape Project, Phase 1 design with Craig Bergman Landscape Design Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $40,850, and also with Gaywalt Hamilton Associates in an amount not to exceed $108,500. Number 8 is approval of a 3-year contract with Alpha Paintworks for fire hydrant painting services, included in the fiscal year 2020 through 2022 operating capital budget for the sum of $53,400. Number 9 is approval of a contract with Superior Road Striping to provide thermoplastic lane marking for the amount of $94,000. Number 10 is approval of a professional services agreement for the fire department locker room renovation project with FGM Architects in an amount not to exceed $43,150. Number 11 is award of a bid for the 2019 Sterling Hall door replacement to TDS Door Company in the amount of $33,800 with a contingency of 5% or $1,690. Number 12 is approval of 2 agreements with Baxter and Woodman and ratification of expenses incurred for an update to both the Burr Oak stormwater analysis and the city's stormwater drainage study in the amount of $34,850. Number 13 is consideration of an ordinance approving a recommendation from the Building Review Board, first reading and if desired by the City Council, final approval. And number 14 is consideration of an ordinance approving a recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission, also first reading and if desired by the City Council, final approval. Are there any items on this list that any member of the council would like to see removed or taken separately for discussion? If there's no comment, then I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Beidler?
Aye.
Alderman Morris?
Aye.
Alderman Newman?
Aye.
Alderman Rummel?
Aye.
Alderman Gashgarian?
Aye.
Alderman Moreno?
Aye.
6 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Thank you, Mike. The next item is consideration of revisions to previous approvals related to construction of a Hyatt Place Hotel in Conway Park. We'd be waiving first reading and granting final approval of an ordinance and approve a resolution by motion. This is going to be presented by Kathy Cerniak, Director of Development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item was last before you just about a year ago. It is a request for revisions to your previous approvals related to Hyatt Place Hotel in Conway Park. Just as a refresher, the hotel is proposed just north of Route 60 on the west side of Field Drive, right in this area, near the entrance to the park. Just as background, over 20 years ago, when Conway Park was annexed to the city, even at that time, 1 or more hotels were always envisioned in the park. In fact, the zoning that's in place in Conway Park allows by right a hotel with design review, of course, but no special use permit is required. So this hotel use was always anticipated. Many discussions over the years about potential hotels. The Genco Group did come forward last year with a proposal, a solid proposal that, as I mentioned, was approved by the council. About a year ago, the council approved both a recommendation from the Building Review Board for the design aspects of the project, as well as an economic development incentive agreement. Several things have happened over the past year, not unusual for a project of this magnitude. Hyatt Hotels, based on experiences with other recently completed Hyatt Places, one in Evanston, one in Milwaukee, and one in Rosemont, stepped back, looked at what was working, looked at what could be enhanced, looked at what customers were demanding, and made modifications to their Hyatt Place prototype. Those modifications included some reconfiguration of the guest rooms, again, to better respond to what they were seeing as a demand, to upgrade some of the materials, to use newer technologies, and this project was, in some respects, caught in the middle of that. The Genco Group did decide to step back and really take advantage of upgrading the hotel, incorporating some more contemporary aspects to really make it be a showplace in Conway Park. In addition, Genco Group stepped back and really seriously considered some input that they had consistently received from the Conway Park Owners Association. That's a group that includes representatives of all of the businesses out in Conway Park, Lake Forest Graduate School, and representatives of the Chicago Bears Association. And what they heard was that in this location, meeting rooms were more important than a pool. So what happened is the first floor was redesigned, meeting rooms were expanded, meeting rooms were designed with flexibility so that they could be larger or smaller. They also heard that the swimming pool, again in this location, probably wasn't as important. By eliminating the swimming pool, a somewhat inconsistent one-story element proposed on the south side of the building was able to be eliminated. So really this building, as now configured, is more consistent with the massing of other buildings in the park. Since over the past year, considerable site and building due diligence has been done. Again, not unusual with a project of this size. However, the engineering plans were recently submitted within the last 30 days and are now under review with our city engineer, and we expect the first round of comments on those engineering plans to be issued soon. So the project is definitely moving forward. There's been a lot of work done to date. Building plans are nearly finished. They are in development. The Genco Group's architect is in discussions with several of the staff in Community Development Department about technical issues related to the mechanicals, electrical systems, really to make sure we're taking advantage of the newest technology. Changes that are being requested at this time. The entrance element, there are some minor design changes on the building. You may recall the entrance element in the approved design was in the center, was an element that actually stepped above the mass of the main building. The entrance element has been moved to the north end of the building so that people approaching really have easy access. A portico was added. Having guests get out in the rain and walk to register really seems to be something that they wanted to eliminate as they move forward into this newer prototype. So the main changes to the building, again, on the south side, elimination of the one-story element, the change to add the entrance element, and then some upgrading of materials. The plan presented to you in July had 158 guest rooms. This plan, slight reconfiguration, has 159 guest rooms and suites. As I mentioned, the first floor consists of additional meeting rooms. Based on experience in other Hyatt Places, there's continued demand for upgraded and enhanced fitness center, lobby, and bar area. In this plan, the kitchen is expanded, and although the restaurant, the food service element, is not a standalone restaurant, it has been expanded in this plan, again, in direct response to what they heard from the Conway Park Owners Association. The other changes is that rather than construction starting this year, 2019, construction is expected to start in spring of 2020, with occupancy completion of the hotel by the end of 2021. So the request before you tonight really are two date changes. You have the Economic Development Incentive Agreement included in your packet. The two changes, complete submittal of the permit, of the building permit application by May 31st, 2020. The current agreement called out that date as May 31st of 2019. We anticipate beating that date. However, the Genco Group did not want to come before the council for a third time to ask for an extension, so really encourage them to take the full year. But we do expect, given the work we've seen so far and the fact that the engineering plans have already been submitted, is that we will receive a full submittal probably well in advance of the May 31st, 2020 date. And then completion date for the hotel would be extended from December 31st of 2020 to December 31st of 2021. Importantly, in Section 6 of the agreement, there is a provision for extension of those dates, if the petitioner requests that. So it was contemplated at the time you approved the agreement that there may need to be some extension of these two dates. However, there is no change proposed to Section 7, which is the section that provides for a limitation on the incentives that could be offered to a competing hotel. No changes are proposed to the 4-year time period. The effective date of the agreement remains the same, and in fact, there is a whereas clause. I believe it's the last whereas clause in your resolution was added after conferring with the city attorney that makes it clear that it wasn't just a mistake, that when you amended the agreement, we didn't change that date. It affirmatively states the council's intention to retain September of 2018 as the effective date of the agreement. So that 4-year period doesn't change. In fact, almost a year of that 4-year period within which the city could not make payments on a different incentive agreement, almost a year of that period is expired, so 3 years remain. So I just wanted to point that out. I know that was a question. Again, no other changes to this section or other sections of the agreement. Staff recommendation, the other piece I didn't mention is that you also have a recommendation from the Building Review Board. The Building Review Board did review the revised changes to the design aspects of the building, unanimously recommended approval. So you do have in front of you an ordinance approving the Building Review Board's recommendation and those design changes. The recommendation is to waive first reading, grant final approval of that ordinance, and to approve the resolution, which will authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute an amended economic development incentive agreement, specifically to change those two dates related to the complete submittal of a building permit application and completion of the hotel. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments from the city council? Michelle?
Thank you. So I remember when we spoke about this before, we talked about the potential for another petitioner, and there's been some dialogue. Is there anything currently that you know of that's currently in the pipeline and community development that you would bring to our attention as a result of this extension?
There is not another petition that has been submitted. There is not another petition that is being discussed. However, I can tell you that as part of the work to date on the Route 60 corridor study, which has included about 20 individual interviews, 3 focus group meetings, 1 community work session so far with an attendance of 48, and then the working group discussions, there has been a lot of discussion about the fact that there appears to be significant demand that could support a second hotel in this area. Certainly what we hear from the Conway Park Owners Association is, bring us a hotel and we will fill it. But no, there is no petition, no discussions going on at the staff level. However, we do know that there's an opportunity, there's another property out there where potentially a hotel could go. But again, no, the action that's requested of you tonight does not change the approvals you granted a year ago with respect to the limitation on incentives for other projects.
Can I just ask for clarification? Forgive me if you weren't down, Michelle, but when Conway said build us a hotel and we'll fill it, they meant in Conway Park, or did they mean there and across the street?
I believe in the Route 60 corridor area.
They would be able to, oh, okay, that's interesting. Bring us hotels and we'll fill them is the message, okay.
Just as a follow-up, when I think about this hotel and the change in entrance, there's no change in signage within Conway Park. There will be a monument sign at the corner. It'll be visible. People will be able to find the hotel, in other words, once it is built. What about from the tollway? Will there be a visible, the sign on the west side of the building, will it be visible from the highway?
Yes, your earlier approvals, as recommended by the Building Review Board, did approve signage at the top of the hotel. So it does have visibility from the tollway, both from the north and from the south. And we will need to talk about directional signage in Conway Park, and that was acknowledged as part of your approvals last year. But you're correct, there will be a monument sign in the park.
And so nothing really changes as far as expected utilization of this hotel. It will be primarily serving, the expectation is it will primarily serve the Conway Park community.
It will certainly be open to, if a family wants to stay there and go to Great America on the weekend, there will be certainly no restrictions. But yes, there is a lot of interest and a lot of desire from the owners in Conway Park to have a hotel on our side of the tollway.
Is there anything that we haven't discussed today beyond economic incentives, which have been, I think, pretty well discussed? But is there anything that the city should be thinking about to help this, not only development, but also the hotel be as successful as possible? Because it's clearly in everyone's best interest.
I think that discussion is happening as part of the Route 60 corridor study. There's been a lot of discussion about how to support the corporate businesses out there, whether it's by looking at alternative housing products, by encouraging research and development opportunities, by providing walking trails, open spaces, other amenities, restaurants. So I think as that process evolves, that's very much a focus of that group.
Thank you.
Alderman Beidler.
It seemed to me that when we initially looked at this, we urged a fuller kitchen service in that hotel. And I hear you say that it's not going to be a freestanding or it's not a standalone kitchen, but will it be possible for, let's say, Conway office people to stop by and have a sandwich there? I mean, is that what, when you say it's part of the hotel, will it be 3 meals a day? Is it?
It will certainly be open
Okay.
to members of the public. It's, again, not a standalone restaurant. Simply by locating the hotel in Conway Park or another hotel in the area, we're really providing an attraction for other restaurants to locate in the area. So we're really building on opportunities and to increase amenities out there.
Good, okay. I was thrilled that it expanded the kitchen. That sounds like a good start, so.
Alderman Rommel.
I think we expanded the kitchen also thinking, and I actually think I spoke with Mr. Jenko about possibility of sort of banquet rooms. Is that what we're thinking with this room expansion? Great, great.
And I will say that Jim Puritan in the audience gave a head nod to Alderman Rummel's question.
Just 2 points of clarification that I'd like to bring up, or maybe have you focus on a little bit. The timing of the incentive and the timing of, since we don't have another hotel proposal in front of us right now, talk about that a little bit, about the impact of this whole question of potential incentives for a second hotel. 'Cause I think the timing conflict pretty much goes away. I guess that's the point I'm
Correct.
getting at.
When the council talked about the incentive agreement a year ago, when you initially saw it at first reading, the language prohibited the city from offering another incentive for a 4-year period. And based on your input prior to first reading, that language was then changed before you saw it for final reading, and the language in Section 7 currently states that the city may not pay an incentive to a competing hotel within the general area for a 4-year period from the effective date. As I mentioned, the effective date of, I think it's September 24th, 2018, remains the same. We are almost a year into that. There's nothing in the agreement that would prevent us, if a second hotel developer came in tomorrow, we could negotiate that agreement. We could take that hotel through any board and commission process. We could bring it to the city council for approval. You could approve an incentive agreement. We could not pay out we could not make incentive payments until that 4-year period had elapsed. Again, we're 1 year into that period. In reality, if a hotel came in tomorrow and began design development and we went through the process, they would be hard-pressed to be open in 3 years anyway. The incentives don't get paid until the hotel's up and operating and the city begins to get some revenue. So you're correct, Mr. Mayor, that the limitation on incentives is not, I think it's been characterized by some as a moratorium. It certainly is not a moratorium.
Exclusivity agreement or anything like that.
And with the time period, as the clock keeps ticking, it really is not a significant deterrent. If there's another hotel that really wants to be here, we're ready and willing to have that conversation.
The other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was maybe a little more of the commentary that was received from the Conway Park owners in terms of their needs for off-site meeting space.
And in direct response to that comment, the first floor of this new hotel has really been configured to maximize the ability for meeting space or banquet rooms. They are designed in a flexible manner, can be divided into smaller rooms. There's a breakout space, so it really is tailored to try and accommodate that need.
And the interesting backstory to that, as I understand it, is with current compliance and security concerns, bringing any number of potential trainees or outside participants into the corporate facility is becoming very difficult for these corporations. And so the need for off-site meeting facilities is expanding dramatically as a result of some of the just general changes that are happening in the business world. So with that, any comment from the public? Any member of the public that would like to speak on this petition? If there are none, there are two. We're going to have two separate roll call votes here. First is to waive first reading and grant final approval of the ordinance in accordance with the Building Review Board's recommendation approving minor modifications to the design aspects of the project.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Beidler?
Aye.
Alderman Morris?
Aye.
Alderman Newman?
Aye.
Alderman Rummel?
Aye.
Alderman Gashgarian?
Aye.
Alderman Moreno?
Aye.
6 yeas, 0 nays, the motion carries.
Thank you. And then the second is to approve a resolution included in the city council packet beginning on page 95, authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city to enter into an amended economic development incentive agreement for the purpose of extending the time periods for 1 year as reflected in the agreement included in the council package.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Another roll call, please.
Alderman Beidler?
Aye.
Alderman Morris?
Aye.
Alderman Newman?
Aye.
Alderman Rummel?
Aye.
Alderman Gashgarian?
Aye.
Alderman Moreno?
Aye.
6 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Next item on our agenda is new business. I'm not aware of any, but if any of our aldermen would like to raise an issue or an item of new business.
I just would like to have a little bit of a discussion, and thank you to Mike Thomas and his Public Works Department for giving us the tour of the beach property. And as some of you aldermen are aware, and certainly the mayor is aware, when I looked at what was going on at the beach, I was looking for perhaps an opportunity to demonstrate some sustainability practices down there. And what I was looking at specifically was the parking lot. We find ourselves in a position now where the beach is not going to be open until mid-September. And so I thought we might take this opportunity to kind of take a look at, are we missing an opportunity here to demonstrate some sustainable practices? In fact, we've been certainly encouraging riparian owners to demonstrate sustainable practices on their properties. And I was anxious to see if the city could potentially do that down at the beach at the north parking lot. So I've engaged in discussions with people in Public Works, and they have convinced me that it's probably not the right place for permeable pavement because it's so close to sea level. And I continued to pursue the idea of bioswales in the parking lot. And I understand that if we were to do that, it would require the elimination of about 8 parking spaces. And I don't know that that's necessarily critical to the parking down there. But I would still be interested to know if that would benefit the overall environmental impact of a parking lot so close to the lake. And I think that I'm hearing that it may not. And I'm fine with that if that is the case. However, I do encourage all of us when we're looking at projects, and I hope going forward, if there are opportunities for more sustainable measures as we do any of our city projects or as we improve any of our city parking lots, that we take a serious look and and always see if there is an opportunity to do any of our development in the city in the most sustainable, environmentally sensitive manner possible. And so thank you for giving me that opportunity to have those discussions with all of you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I think the whole issue of sustainability is on the agenda for some significant action over the next months. So.
And again, we are happy to incorporate that into some of the upcoming conversations for long-term capital planning. And if it is the prerogative of the council to incorporate additional sustainability initiatives into our long-term capital planning, then we'll seek that direction and hope to provide whatever information you need.
Thank you.
Sounds good to me. I mean, we're not voting on anything, but I think incorporating concerns about sustainability into our long-term capital planning sounds like a great idea. I think we do some of that now, and we just may need to figure out some more deliberate ways of approaching that. But
Sure, and again, I think having a better sense of what that direction might be from the council, but also how it fits within the overall capital needs assessment that we have within the community. Those will be good conversations for the council to have.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Any other comments by the alderman? Okay, well, there being no further business, I would invite everybody to go to Lake Forest Day tomorrow and Wednesday and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Short, well organized,
I know.
well executed.